There's a room you know. It is not located anywhere in the physical world. It stays with you. It's the room where the old version of you still lives. Furniture in its usual place. Clothes folded the way she used to fold them. A specific light coming through the window at the exact time she used to sit there, waiting. Do you recognize this room? Because for a long time, it was the only place where you knew how to exist. Perhaps you memorized every detail of it without realizing it. The chair facing the door, the clock ticking towards a time that never arrives, the specific silence that only exists in rooms where someone is waiting for something that doesn't yet have a name. You've entered this room thousands of times without realizing you were entering it. All it took was a specific thought, a souvenir, a silent comparison with someone else's life, and there you were, sitting in the same chair, looking out the same window. You don't need to break down the door to that room. You don't need to shout to get out. Just let the old reality fade away, not like a battle, like a room that gradually stops being visited. Try to feel that's for a moment, not as an idea, as a physical sensation, that place inside you that still holds the old way of being. It doesn't need to be demolished. You just need to stop receiving his attention. And what stops receiving attention, he leaves if it were real. Pay attention to your body now. On the shoulders, on the chest, somewhere out there, attention has been maintained for so long that you've forgotten it's optional. She might start to loosen up before you even understand why. You don't need to understand for something to already be moving. Sometimes, the most profound change doesn't come as a revelation. It arrives as a small, almost imperceptible relief in a muscle you didn't even know was tense. You know the texture of waiting, the way the body leans slightly forward, as if life were about to arrive from somewhere else. The habit of checking, the phone, the situation, the signs, like someone checking to see if it was finally allowed. You searched. He absorbed explanations, techniques, promises that all it took was doing it right, saying it right, aligning things correctly, and yet, at some quiet point in the night, there was this feeling of being on the outside of a life that should have been yours, trying to become. It's as if your entire self is somewhere ahead, in the future, waiting for permission to exist. Perhaps you've kept that expectation hidden in discreet places. The habit of postponing small decisions until something confirmed that it was safe to proceed in the way they observe the lives of others, like someone reading a map of a territory they haven't yet set foot in. The way you smile during conversations, while inside, a part of you is still calculating how much is left. Perhaps you have mentally rehearsed future versions of yourself, safer, more complete, more at peace, and then, without understanding, it reverted to the usual version, like someone borrowing clothes before leaving home. You recognize that. Perhaps I'm still feeling it now. The old pattern has a breath of its own. It repeats itself at the same times, with the same doubts, the same internal comments about what is still missing. He wakes up with you in the morning, even before thoughts have words. He sits down at the table. No car allowed. It appears in the mirror for a second. Before you compose yourself, he has a voice that sounds like yours. But it isn't. It's just an old recording. playing on a loop because nobody ever told her she could stop. He is not an enemy. He is merely an echo, a sound that keeps playing because at some point someone pressed play and nobody pressed the stop button. But an echo doesn't support a house. It only repeats itself as long as there is a surface to bounce off. And there's something important here, something easy to miss. You never needed to overcome this pattern. You just needed to stop confusing him with who you are. It is not a sentence. It's a habit of mindfulness. And mindfulness habits, however old they may be, have no roots. They only repeat themselves. It might seem strange to realize this now. The thing that seemed most permanent in you, the most ingrained, the most true, was simply the thing you repeated most often. And what is repeated can, just as naturally, cease to be. Here's what changes everything, and it changes silently. Reality doesn't change when circumstances change. It transforms at the exact moment when the identity changes from within, not later, not as a consequence. At that very instant, you are not someone waiting to become who will live this life. You are the one who already lives. Let that sentence sink in slowly. No rush to understand. Just by feeling. The question was never, what do I need to do to get there? The question has always been, who am I now while all this is happening? Because your perception of yourself is not a commentary on reality. She is the very architecture of reality. Every little way you refer to yourself in thought is a brick. Every gesture of the body, the posture, the breathing, the way of walking through a room is mortar. Pay attention to how you enter a space. Notice how your voice sounds when you talk about yourself. Even in silence, even just to yourself, there's a version of you that has stopped asking permission to fully exist. And she is not in the future. She's right here, just waiting to be recognized. Not built. Perhaps it has already appeared in small moments that you didn't even register as significant. A moment when you spoke without hesitation. A moment when someone's silence didn't bother you. A moment when you occupied a space without apologizing for occupying it. These moments were not exceptions. These were leaks of who you already are behind the old identity that still insists on speaking first. Imagine this old identity as a voice that always grabs the microphone first, out of habit, by custom, not because I have more right, simply because for a long time, no one else volunteered to speak. Now there is another voice. She was always there. I was just waiting for the microphone to become free. You're not building a new life. You are stopping the process of rebuilding the old one every day with the same materials. Feel the weight of that being lifted from your shoulders. It's not about effort. It's about stopping holding on to what could have already fallen apart on its own. There's a difference between carrying something and simply not having let go yet. Most of the weight you feel today isn't new weight. It's a burden. An old man who was never given permission to leave. And this permission doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be as simple as a thought that doesn't last long. An old reaction that, this time, simply doesn't happen. And then, something starts to move. Not out there. Here. External reality doesn't push you inward. She is being pushed silently, constantly, from the inside out. She is a reflection. It always has been. When internal identity stabilizes elsewhere, The world around it has no choice but to reorganize itself to reflect this new position, not because you forced it, because there was nothing left to support the old arrangement. This doesn't happen with fireworks. It happens in the same way that a room's temperature changes. When someone opens a window on the other side of the house, you don't see the wind coming in. Only a few minutes later does he realize that the air is no longer the same. You're not going to manifest it in the sense of making it happen. You'll simply notice one day that a conversation was different. It was an easy decision, where before it had been a difficult one. A place that once caused tightness in the chest is now just a place. You'll notice that a phrase that used to hurt you now passes by without finding a place to cling to it. A silence that once seemed like rejection is now simply silence. Someone who previously demanded an explanation now simply doesn't need it anymore. You might notice that certain doors that previously seemed locked were, in fact, never truly locked. They were just hoping for someone on the other side who wouldn't hesitate to turn the doorknob. And you'll realize that you haven't done anything in terms of effort. It simply stopped being the person for whom it hurt in that way. Reality was simply returning, with natural delay, what the identity had already decided internally. This delay has a name, although it is rarely mentioned. It's just the time it takes for things to catch up to what you already are inside. It's not punishment. This is not a test. It's just physics. The world is catching up to the new position you've become. Like a stone thrown into a still lake. The stone touched the water the instant it left my hand. The waves that arrive later on the shore are only recounting what has already happened. You don't need to keep looking at the shore, waiting for the wave. You can simply tell that the stone has already fallen. So let it be said slowly, so that the body listens and not just the mind. It already happened. It's not going to happen. It's not about to happen. It already happened. The moment you stopped feeding the old version with attention, with fear, with repetition, you are already the version, not the one who is striving to get there, the one that's already here. Feel your feet on the ground, right now, exactly as they are. This person, in this body, at this moment, this is already the person for whom life is reorganizing itself. Nothing needs to be confirmed first. No message, no results. No external proof is needed beforehand for this to be true. Because validation never came from the outside. She was always an echo, returning from within. You are already the version. Say this without rushing, like someone repeating something that finally makes sense after years of hearing it without listening. You are already the version. Feel how this phrase changes in weight each time it is repeated, as if, with each repetition, it ceased to be an idea and began to turn into the ground beneath her feet. It's not a statement you need to force yourself to believe. It's a recognition that just needs space to take hold. And the old version, the one that waited, that doubted, that checked the signs, it still exists somewhere in memory, like a room you visited once. But you don't live there anymore. You don't need to go back to turn off the lights. They turn off by themselves when no one else comes to turn them on. There is a specific kind of stillness that comes when this is truly felt. Not an empty stillness, a complete stillness, like a room after all the furniture has finally found its place. It's a stillness that asks nothing of you. That doesn't require you to prove anything, achieve anything, or demonstrate anything. She only asks that you continue being who you have already recognized yourself to be in this moment. Perhaps, along with this quietness, you'll feel a soft urge to chuckle, the kind of laughter that comes when something that seemed complicated suddenly turns out to be simple. All that searching, all that effort, and the answer was to stop searching, stay here for a moment, without needing to do anything with what you just felt. There's no need to keep this as a lesson. There's no need to repeat this as a practice. You just need to be that now, exactly as you already are. The old reality doesn't need a farewell. She doesn't need forgiveness, nor an explanation, nor a last glance over the shoulder. It just needs to stop being the place your attention habitually returns to, and gradually, without a set date, without ceremony, it dissipates, like a room that nobody visits anymore, like an echo that has finally found silence to support itself, like a light that no one needs to turn off anymore, because no one comes in to turn it on anymore. You're not expecting anything anymore. You are not becoming anything. You already are, and perhaps, sometime from now, you'll look back and won't even be able to pinpoint the exact moment when everything changed. Because there wasn't a moment. There was simply the gradual end of attention that no longer needed to be given to a place you had already left. Just like a season changes without anyone marking the exact moment when the cold turned to heat. One day, the air is simply different. It starts from here, from this exact moment, from this body, from this breath. Everything else will naturally fall into place.